Today's review is from Francesca Bianchi. This one will be released in conjunction with another new one in her line. This one is called Etruscan Water, and it'll be released in the coming month or so. I was lucky enough to be sent a small sample by Francesca, and I have enough here to base this review on about three wears, a little bit more than 3 wears. So normally I like to wear something a little bit more before I do a review. Today I'm going to base it on what I've got here, but I can tell enough about the character of this scent to give a reasonable description of what I'm smelling. Alright, so let's get right into it, because people tell me I ramble too much before I actually start talking about a fragrance. So I'm going to spray whatever I've got left here of Etruscan Water. While it's okay, so it's a beautiful citrus opening in the style of 80s masculine colognes, except you definitely get some moss in the opening with the citrus as well. And in some respects, the opening kind of reminds me a little bit of Dior's Eau Sauvage Parfum, but only that little bit in the opening. Now, the way I would characterize this scent in broad terms before I start to break it down is that it definitely has the feel of a chypre kind of fragrance, but with elements of fougere mixed in there. Etruscan Water, the inspiration for Francesca was from where she grew up in Tuscany and the surrounding areas. What this really evokes for me is wet mossy stone. The citrus is not even so much literal smell of citrus. The citrus in a way has this kind of abstract effect of making you smell the sea air in that region. So it's a real kind of outdoor fragrance in that the elements smell like they're in the outdoors. So I get this lovely fizzy wet ancient stone covered in moss, and you get the, it's not even so much a greenish moss, it's more of a brown moss, if that makes any sense. It's kind of got an earthiness to it. The citrus gives the impression of fresh seawater, but with an airy quality. So it doesn't smell like the ocean. It just has that seawater freshness that is affecting the way the air smells around you. And I love that this fragrance is what I would describe as a 3-dimensional, a 3D fragrance, because I get polar elements of hard and soft and dark and light, and it's kind of an addictive smell. Now, one thing about this fragrance as well is that the other thing I mean by 3-dimensional is that it kind of smells different, a little bit different from a distance and from close up. When this starts to dry down, you definitely pick up a more recognizable Francesca Bianchi accord that I recognize, or it reminds me of other scents of hers, and I'm talking about this musky orris leather kind of accord, which sits in a base, and here it works so perfectly because it gives it this impression. This even though this is meant as a, if you take it literally as a citrus chypre, you have imagery in your mind of lightness and a bit of greenness and mossiness, but there is a real age about this fragrance. I'm probably not expressing myself very well, and by age I mean that this smell is one that you can remember from your childhood, and I guess she's achieved her goal here with what her inspiration was. So she's definitely got a Francesca Bianchi signature here, but it is probably the most different of the line, the whole line that I've smelled before. I really like this fragrance because it's using overtly masculine accords and scents, and there is a beautiful brown, slightly bitter aspect to this oak moss in here, which for me is the dominant thing that I smell throughout the scent. But it develops, okay? So it is very fresh in the opening, and then it develops. It takes you, like all of Francesca's scents, it takes you on a sensual journey, okay? And in this one here, it is about being out in the elements, and there is the elements of air and earth and water. Probably no fire, but there is enough to make up for it. As with all of her fragrances, this has excellent performance. I sprayed it on the first time on the back of my hand in the evening, and I could still have traces of it the next morning. That's pretty much my impression of wearing it. Like I said, it is different. You get a different impression of what you pick up close up, and then as you just let it waft off your body, you smell other elements to it, which is what I like about any fragrance that does that. Always keeps me interested. Some people might smell this and be reminded of other fragrances, particularly other classic chypre style fragrances, but I love that this is still its own thing. It's unique because it's got the Francesca Bianchi base, signature base, with all these wonderful smelling fresh natural elements in there in the opening and through its development. That's my impression / review of Etruscan Water. The other one it's part of a new line called Freefall, so it's a new direction that Francesca Bianchi is going in. It will be released in the coming weeks from this review, so just keep an eye out on her website, which I'll link to in the description, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching.